What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. I am here with Typhoid Mary. Jules, what's going on?
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast.
Jules has the worst case of COVID for the fourth time since COVID came out. And thank God I didn't see her all week. And I told her if she gets me sick, it's going to be a different conversation.
Yes, but you're fine.
Except I'm a germaphobe and you're making me nuts. So, and we're
you had like 8 boosters or what?
I had like 15 boosters, only to find out that they were probably injecting me with water anyway. Who the knows? I don't know. So, and I'm here with my friend Adam Rossen of the Rossen Law Firm, one of my favorite people in South Florida, and he's crushing it on the criminal defense side, and he's just doing some really special stuff. Second time on the podcast. Welcome, Adam. How you doing?
Two-time guest on the show. I'm excited.
That's right.
Anybody else been a 2-time guest on the show?
We've had Craig Goldenfarb on. We had Craig Goldenfarb on.
That's because he had something to promote.
He was actually talking about tort reform. He was talking about tort reform that I really wanted to dig down on. The first time he came on, talked about the business of law, KPIs, that type of stuff. And because, he's a freaking savant. The guy is just really a savant. And then the second time, it was right after tort reform passed. And I really wanted to talk about it because so many people were talking about it. I wanted to give people a deeper understanding of what it actually looked like in a state where people's rights went a little haywire. So
Florida, the free state of Florida.
Yeah, pretty much do whatever you want.
I think you and Craig are the only ones who are. Oh, and Herb, actually. So
Herb's been on a couple of times. Yeah, Herb.
Anytime I can share a stage with those guys or be in the same level, I'm happy. That's great company.
Listen, man, I love you to death, man. Anytime you want to come on. But we had this idea. We were talking down in New Orleans at Pilma, and dude, I give kudos, by the way, to guys like you and Jay Ruane, because you're in a space where people get so myopically focused on, I'm a criminal defense person, right, that they don't see the opportunities before them to think outside the box. You show up at the personal injury marketing and management mastermind, Pilma, and you're one of 2 criminal defense attorneys in the room with like 300 PI firms. Yeah. But what's awesome is you, and Jay has done the same thing. You have very easily been able to make the most of any room you're in. You take away all these takeaways and you apply them to your business. Right. And I think it's genius.
There's not many differences. I mean, contingency versus flat fee, sure. But it's the same thing that they're doing. And, my thing is, I've followed Pilma for years. I'm not a member, but I'm not opposed to being a member of Pilma. But I know they have a lot of tech focused stuff, a lot of AI focused, but really it was like, I want to be in the room with a bunch of, 8 figures and multiple 8 figures and, multiple 7-figure firms that are trying to get to 8 figures, because the PI lawyers are the most sophisticated. They're the smartest. They spend the most money. And it was great because, my 2 major takeaways, and it's funny too, because it's not anything that I didn't know, but sometimes you got to hear it again for the 37th time and be in the right moment. But the biggest takeaways I took is, they obsess about intake and the phones as much as we do. It's all marketing's great, but it's more about intake and sales. And it's like, wow, if a $15, a $20 million, a $7 million PI firm, that's what they're obsessed about. Okay, well then we're on the right track here. And of course, anytime I get to hang with you, I finally got to meet Jules, because I think she was sick again last time I was
She's
on.
always sick, dude. She is Typhoid Mary. I'm telling you.
No, I wasn't. I think last time you came on, I was at another conference.
I think there's something to this. A lot of people that listen to this will say, oh, I'm not a PI lawyer. And that's a big mistake because the criminal defense lawyers that I know that are 8-figure lawyers were always the ones in the room with the 8-figure PI firms. Seth Price, perfect example, or other players like even Umansky, our buddy Umansky, like his firm is growing leaps and bounds, but he's always in the room with PI players. People have to stop being so myopic in the worldview of I can only learn in my lane. If you put me in a room full, and I'm actually in a new networking group where I'm one of the only lawyers there. Out of 100 people, one, I get a tremendous amount of business out of it, but I learn how other people are doing it. Business is business. Sales is sales, regardless of what you're selling, right? So I really give you a lot of props for that, dude, because I think that guys like you, ladies like you, that go outside their lane and they're like, I just want to learn. Right. That's when the needle gets moved in your area of practice. You learn best practices for balancing boutique versus volume and and that's one of the things you're masterful at. You are boutique. You're the equivalent of those, super high end, specialize in, a handful types of cases, and then maybe they only run 30 files versus 300 files.
Well,
right?
We try to have a little bit of both in our firm. We like the volume, but we're definitely not the churn 'em and burn 'em, volume type.
Right.
And we're trying to build multiple firms within the firm as far as criminal defense, because look, nobody wants to have their DUI lawyer handle their white collar case, right? So we have our fancy schmancy white collar and healthcare fraud lawyer, doing SEC investigations and, and all that Ponzi schemes, Bitcoin mining, and all across the country. And he's amazing and he's brilliant and he can do DUIs. He does do DUIs, but as we continue to grow, we're going to be, really having him hone in on just that as we continue to build that practice. And we can have our other lawyers handle DUIs, and we have our lawyers that love sex crimes. And we have some lawyers that say, Adam, I want nothing to do with financial crimes. Give me the blood and guts. Give me the robberies, the burglaries, the rapes, the murders. We can, and we want, we have very ambitious business plans through, EOS has been instrumental with that. But it's been one of those things where, we want to grow, we want to continue to grow deeper. When you dig for oil, right? You drill for oil, you have to drill deep, not wide. But we also want to have multiple oil rigs throughout South Florida and beyond. And so it's kind of a combination of both. But I've never wanted to be just that high volume, low fee, low customer service, low legal skill lawyer or firm, because whatever I've done in my life, it's been high end. It's been the best. I'm a state champion, winning basketball coach. I don't like doing things just to make money, right? And even money is not one of our, it's not the first or probably second reason that the firm's founded on. It's probably third, because you need to have a profitable business, but there's so many decisions that we make that are counterintuitive to just turning a profit, because there is a mission, there is a greater good. We do have core values. And, as we continue to stick with those, just naturally the money comes and the success comes. So, obviously we can talk for hours just about that alone. I know we got some other things on the agenda.
Yeah, we do. So let's transition for a second. So we're down in New Orleans at Pilma. And we're eating, what's it called? A beignet? Am I saying that right? The beignets, right? Beignet or beignet?
Is just a fancy French zeppoli, right?
That's exactly right. And I don't know if it was the Italians that created it first, but it's basically this big oversized fried piece of dough with powdered sugar on it. Delicious. So if anybody's in New Orleans, don't give me any shit for this. But
I mean, anything fried and with sugar is always going to be good. But it's just like
even I ate it. I never eat sugar, and it was good. But I had to be able to say I ate it when I was in New Orleans. But we had the epiphany, and it was hot. It was humid. It was late at night, and we're sitting around a table, the three of us, and we were talking about personality testing and the benefits of the predictive index over certain other ones that may or may not be more scientifically advanced. And you said there's a test you really like. What was the name of the test?
Yeah, so it's the culture index, and I absolutely love it. We've been using it for about 3 years, kind of bootlegging it for a little bit. And finally we were like, look, we need to go all in. So core value number 4 at the Rossen Law Firm is play all in. And I said, look, let's go all in. Let's hire the coach. Let's pay for the program and let's use it. And we revamped our entire hiring process to now you don't even get an interview. So you apply at the Rossen Law Firm. We immediately send you an automated response to fill out the culture index. It takes about 8 to 10 minutes. And it's a behavioral assessment. It's not necessarily personality. It's behavior based. And from there, depending on how you score, we might actually look at the resume. So I don't care if you're the best legal assistant ever. If you don't have the behavior profile that we're looking for a legal assistant, doesn't mean you're good or bad, or you're a good person or a bad person, or skilled or not skilled. It's just we are so in tune with what our Rossen Law Firm culture is and the type of culture and behaviors that we need in different positions that we're not even speaking to you. And we can actually do that because this is EEOC compliant. It's 91% validated. So I know you guys are big DISC people. DISC is only 55% validated. So we're using Culture Index for 2 reasons. One is a screening tool in our hiring process, and 2 as a management tool for how to connect better with our team, how to motivate, inspire, manage, hold accountable our teammates. And so from both ends, it's been absolutely fantastic. But we had to go through a full 2-day training. My guy, I'm going to give him a shout out, Sumit, is amazing. And, we had to pay for the training and then we pay for the licensing every year. And it's just mind boggling of I believe how accurate it is. So
all right.
We were messing around and I said, all right, well, let's have, Tom and Jules do it. And I can give you guys some insight into how, why you guys are all sorts of crazy. But
so I thought that was awesome. But before we even jump into that, before we even jump into the dissection, which I'm a little nervous about now, but we actually moved away from the DISC. We used it a little bit differently. I used it purely as a communication tool, the DISC, and how do people like to be communicated with, and how do they like to be managed? Are they more independent? Do they want more collaboration and input? We moved away from that largely after talking to you to the predictive index, which is very similar to the culture index. And I think it's administered by the same people. We paid for an annual subscription.
They're different companies, but basically what Culture Index, and this is what I've been told, Culture Index basically has very similar baseline to predictive index, and then they added on 3 additional measurements that take it from like 75% to about 90% validated.
All right.
That's what I heard.
Awesome.
I don't know. Awesome. I didn't read the studies, but that's what the Culture Index.
And again, all of these tests should only be a guidepost, right? They're not a dividing line. It's a guidepost. How do people like to communicate? And does a roll call for somebody who's more collaborative or more independent, that type of thing. So that's kind of how I've always been told to use it. I'll interview people to get deeper dive on everything to see if it's a better, what's a great fit, what's not a great fit. So without further ado, because I want to be respectful of your time, but I think this is going to be both fun and enlightening. Who do you want to start with? You want to start with me or Jules first?
Ooh, I don't know. Who do you guys want? I think Jules is excited.
I think we should save mine for last. I think we should start with Tom's.
All right, start with mine first.
The very first thing that we look at, I think, is the red arrow. Now, the red arrow can be anywhere from 0 to 10. It does not matter where the red arrow is. So whether it's at 1 or 10, it does not matter. There's nothing. The red arrow is the median, okay, is the 50% mark. So if you're to the right of the red arrow, then you're in the upper 50% of this. And if you're in the left of the red arrow, you're in the lower 50%. And the very first thing is the A. Okay. And by the way, you are titled an enterpriser. Okay. So an enterpriser is a visionary profile. Okay. A leadership profile. And let's talk about what this means. So A is autonomy. Okay. And when we're looking at the dots, we're looking at the relationship from certain dots to one another, like the A to D relationship and the A to B relationship are important. But we're also looking at the relationship of the dots to the red arrow or the median. Okay. So I'm not the best with counting here, but you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clicks or 5 points to the right of the line. Okay. What this means is that now, if you're 3 clicks you're in about 95th percentile for autonomy. So you're 5. So Tom, what that means is that you are in the top point, like half, maybe top, you are in the 99.9% of autonomy. Okay. You make your decisions based on facts and data, but you don't want anybody telling you what to do. You are your own man. You make decisions. You are in charge. You are, assertive, right? It's kind of like the high D on a disc. So I would assume that you are a very high D on disc. Is that true?
100, yeah.
Right. For example, I'm about a 3.5 clicks away for autonomy for mine. So I'm in maybe the 95th percentile, but you are just light years ahead of me. As far as nobody's telling you what to do, you're in charge. You believe that you are crafting and creating your own destiny. Am I right so far?
Yeah,
yes.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the B is social, and it's not of how social you are, right? How outgoing you are, because it's how you make decisions. So you're right nudging that line. Okay. So, but when push comes, so it means you care about people. You're probably in the 48th percentile, right? Roughly, of making decisions based on people. But your A is so strong that you're a deductive decision maker instead of an inductive decision maker. You're not making decisions based on people's feelings. And I remember last time I was on your show, we talked about, how you shudder when people say, "Oh, this is my work family," right? And you're like, "Oh, yes. No." Okay.
Yes.
So that's a classic enterpriser. For example, I am a trailblazer. Okay. And so the trailblazer, my A is very high, but my B is to the right of this line. Can you guys see my cursor from here?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. So my B is like here. Now my A is still higher. So I still will put data and facts over people and feelings, but I'm a little softer, a little more, in tune with people. But again, we've had some people, right? Like it doesn't mean that you don't love, you're super outgoing. You love people. It's just how do you make decisions? Okay. Right. Now the C is and look, high versus low. Low is not bad, right? Mm-hmm. High is not good. It is what it is. Okay. C is pace, is how fast you work. Are you a multitasker or are you sequential? When you are a low C, you are a fast-paced multitasker. If you're on this side if you're a high C, you're slow paced and sequential. So one of the biggest things that we look for in the firm, since we are so fast paced, is we want low Cs. Okay. So you're fast paced, high kind of movement, right? And then D is really the attention to detail aspect. So what this says is that you are naturally low attention to detail, but you have what we call this hook back, which is what I have. So I'm very similar to you, except my B is a little bit to the right. And the rest of this is very similar. I have this hook as well. And what this means is selective attention to detail. Okay.
Yep.
So if it's going to benefit you or something you're interested in, you can be hyper focused, hyper attentive to detail, but that is not going to be your natural inclination for all things. Right. So for example, Manny, who's the managing partner of the firm, he's a technical expert. His D is all the way out here, right? Everything, just data. And he's a high A also. It's high attention to detail, accuracy over everything. So I know that, does that correlate to the C, to the S or the C for disc?
The C in the disc for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, now we have other visionary profiles where the D will be here, and that might be like a daredevil or something else where just no matter what, though they're the greatest. And I don't want to, they're the type of entrepreneurs, maybe like on a Colby scale, where they're a 9 or 10 quick start and maybe a 1 follow through, right? Oh, so you do have some follow through. It just has to benefit you. Okay.
Gotcha.
So now this is your natural inclination. Now the energy units we only look at in comparison to one another. So I'll get to that. And the bottom three are the things that I've been told that predictive index does not have. The energy units, the L and the I. The L is logic. So you're a little low in logic. You're still low mid. I'm a 1. So I was apparently told that people that are 0s and 1s are emotional train wrecks. So apparently I'm learning that I'm an emotional. Okay. So you're a 4, so you're average, but in the legal field, and if you have your team do this, and we've had our team do this, most people in my firm are 9s and 10s. And when you get to be a 9 or 10, yeah, and you got to worry, because if you're too much of a 10, are you like Spock? Are you unable to connect with people on an emotional level? So, but I've also found that's weird. In my firm, our 9s and 10s can do that, but you're a 4. Okay, so you're lower middle of the pack. All right, and we'll see what Jules is. If I remember correctly, here's Jules. We won't click on it, but we'll wait for the big reveal. But I think she might have been a little on the low side like me.
I feel like mine was similar to yours, Adam.
Right, yeah. So the I is ingenuity or inventiveness. So if you're a 10, you're Elon Musk, okay? If you're a 0, right, and we have a lot of people in the legal field tend to be high logic and low inventiveness or ingenuity. I believe I'm a 6, so you're an 8. So that means, if I have maybe 15 new ideas a day, Tom, you probably have 30 to 50 new ideas every day.
Pretty accurate.
And what I've learned is I'm really good at taking something that's already been done and making it better, or taking something in an adjacent field like PI and turning it into criminal. But I'm not the best at having completely brand new ideas going from 0 to something else, going from 0 to 100. And I think that's why I kind of fit in at about a 6. So, you more of the 8, 9s or 10s might have just some brand new idea that nobody's ever thought of before, right? I think I'm very, I have high ingenuity, but as far as the pure inventiveness, I'm not as strong. So talk to me about that, Tom. What do you think?
It's funny. One of our core values is innovation and improvement. So I look to continually improve on existing and create new. And I love that. And much to probably everybody's chagrin around me, they're like, hey, how many new things do you want to focus on? So being aware, I find being self-aware, because the same things that can be a competitive advantage can also be a curse depending on your ability to taper them, control them. So I use my leadership team for that. Or if I'm working closely with a Juliet, I tell Juliet in the beginning of working together, hey, listen, I'm going to throw 100 new I love marketing. I will throw 100 new ideas at you. Just creative repository for that. Do not try to do everything that and again, people have tried to do that, and that's my fault because I love shiny things. I love to keep innovating. So yeah, I created my own software,
right?
So I love that.
And when you know more about yourself, what I've learned over the years is, hey, do I want to be a better version of me? Yes, but I don't want to be different. I don't want to change who I am. Let me continue to strive to be better, a better business person, a better leader, a better person, a better husband, a better father, right? Just everything. But I don't want to change who I am. And what I need to do is bring people who complement me into the firm. So for example, you should really do this with your integrator, because your integrator should complement you, not be another enterpriser. Two enterprisers, or two visionary profiles will battle each other, and that would probably not be good. And my guess is, from what you've said about her, is that she probably has an extremely complementary profile. For example, my wife is a socializer, which is interesting. Socializers generally don't work well in our firm. And my wife's a brilliant attorney, but her B is through the roof. And so that's why she's beloved by everybody, because she's always making decisions for others and putting people ahead of her. And it's just so interesting to see that. And yeah, it's completely true. So
that's my wife too. It's funny because she's got that similar profile. And it's funny that they're married to the same types of person as well, right? Like, I think that's the yin and yang of the relationship space. If you find that compliment,
Right.
you know, like it will offset those parts about us that are, you know, not there, or like on a much lower scale.
Absolutely. And when we look at the survey traits, that's you. That is Tom Tona in his natural habitat. Job behaviors is what Tom Tona thinks he should be as the CEO and founder of TonaLaw, right? Or I guess there's the new brand, right?
Gotcha.
Which I know you let slip a few weeks
New
ago.
corporation, not new brand. TonaLaw is the brand. It's just a new corporation.
Powered by. Right.
Powered by. Yeah. The brand is always going to be the brand.
So you think to be the best, you know, in your position, you need to continue to be that hard charging, you know, dominant, you know, but you think you need to be even less inductive with your decision making. You need to be maybe a little bit even, you know, I don't want to use the word colder, but just a little less caring about not caring, but that's the wrong word. Making decisions less about people and feelings. And you think you need to be more attentive to detail, right? Because you see the shift between the green and the D.
Yes. Yeah,
and there's a major shift here, you know, with the logic. You think you need to be highly logical. Okay.
Right.
The rest, you know, you can also see, obviously, you think the, you know, Ingenuity is the same. And, you know, as far as being that high A is the same. Now, the energy units, what we look at is the comparison between the two. What I've been told is that if you go up or down, if you go up more than 10 to 20%, then you're stressed. And if you go down more than 10 to 20%, then you're bored. Okay. So it looks like there's a little bit of stress here because you think you have to be you think you have to be less decision making based on feelings and people, and you think you need to be more attentive to detail and more logical, and that's causing you some stress. Okay. So that's what the EU shows. And again, that's the EU, the L, and the I are the big difference between the predictive index and the culture index. Now, if we scroll down a little, you know, it talks about here, these are your summaries. Okay. We don't have to read everyone, but I'll put it on screen. Let's see. It says you're a generalist. You may avoid detail by delegating to others, naturally decisive. They may seem impulsive. Jules, do you ever think he's impulsive or fearless?
No, Tom, never.
Right.
No, I'm being sarcastic. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So he's happiest when he's working on his own and may appear insensitive or uncooperative when managing others. Is Tom, right, a good manager?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. See, for me, I'm not a good manager. I can be for certain people, but by and large, globally, I don't have the patience for certain people. So I've realized I'm not a good man. Well, it's not that I'm not good. There's people in the firm that are better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I would actually say, Jules, what Adam, I think, is doing is drawing a distinction between a manager and a leader. I think that I'm a strong leader.
Yes.
I don't know that my management, I think there are much stronger managers within my firm, same as you, Adam. Like, I don't think that I'm the strongest on the, like, training is not my strong house. It's not my wheelhouse. And I don't like it. I don't want to do it. I would rather hire fully trained. And I love the leadership aspect. That's different from management, Jules. And that's what I think Adam is drawing a distinction. I think you're being kind, Jules, if you're saying I am.
One sentence that sticks out is, this is a quick-paced individual who wants to handle problems as they arise. That's Tom. Because I swear, if one thing happens, he's like, okay, I got to fix this right now in like 10 seconds or less.
Right. That's me. We're calling a firm-wide meeting in the next 15 minutes. We're solving this right now. And people are like, he's crazy. And I'm like, no, let's just solve it. So I'm similar in that way, right? You enjoy working in a changing environment and you're bored by redundant work. Resist structure. Okay. And let's see, potentially stubborn. Yay, nay? What do we think here?
Yeah, could be.
Okay. But there's behavioral flexibility, right? You know, capable of stretching themselves out of character for short periods of time, but longer periods, right, can stress you. So you see that there's, innovative thinking. Okay. And so that, look, this is going to be diametrically opposed to what one of their other profiles, a specialist, is. And what I've found, what Sumit told us, is specialists, you get a creative visionary type profile, and then you get a bunch of doers that are tech experts, maybe specialists, or some of the other, research based or, type of patterns. Then you can build an unstoppable workforce, an unstoppable team. Right.
I was just thinking, like, I could see the value of this. I would never want to hire myself because as a team member that has to do specific functions, even if it was management, there's only really one role that this profile I would see as having value. Is that right?
Well, not necessarily. So one of our attorneys is an enterpriser, and he's a brilliant attorney. And so the way, actually, our federal and white collar attorney, David, and he knows this. And so David's brilliant, and he's young, and, he's not old. He's not young. He's in a good, about 10 years into his career, close to 35. And he wants to be the biggest and baddest white collar attorney in the country. He wants to be the guy by the time he's 40 that's commanding $1 million fees for all these cases.
Wow.
And so for us, but we have to know that enterprisers tend to be more selfish. So when we're talking about it, it's more of the, well, what's in it for me? Right. Enterprisers generally, if they're not the owner of the business, they're not staying long term unless you can build something around their vision, their future, what they want. Right. And look, and I firmly believe, I've learned a lot of this with coaching basketball. A lot of times, if we're in this together and if we have a shared mission and vision and core values, the EOS terms, then we are building what David wants. Right. Because what's good for David is good for the firm. And what's good for the firm is good for David. So, I think for somebody like him who shares our core values and is bought in, but just, for him, it's a lot of the, but I want to be great. I want to be the star. So I'm here on your podcast, right? I get to be the star in the business world, but David's the one that we put forth on the local news. He's been the one on News Nation. I've been on News Nation too, but whenever they call us, I'm trying to get David on as the talking head because that feeds his ego. Right. And that's what he wants. So, and that's not what I mean, sure, I can do it too, but I'd rather be talking to you guys than go on News Nation and talk about, Donald Trump's, conviction. Right. That's it. And he does fantastic at it. So there is a place. You just have to, see it. It's not a be all end all. Would I hire this person, this profile for a legal assistant? 0% chance.
Right.
Zero.
Yeah, because I'm not going to be the person that does the same thing day in and day out. I already know that about myself. And so I see the value of, how you use this as a tool and a guide, again, as a guide for if you have a position that requires stable, predictable workflow and work type, you might as well just take this and paper cut me to death. It's going to be the same thing if I have to do that kind of role. What are you laughing at, Jules?
Nothing, because it's just funny. It's true.
Yeah. Well, on that, let's. You think we should just rip Jules apart now?
Yes.
All right, so let's rip. So here you go, Jules, and you guys took this 5:14. When did Tom take it? 5:15. Okay, so Jules, basically this confirms what all the exes say, that you're all crazy, right? So no,
yes.
Okay.
Oh,
so
her current boyfriend might say the same thing.
I know, right?
All right.
So, well, when are we getting him on the show?
You know what? He could come in frame right now.
He could. Well, no, I'm not going to have him.
He's too sick for that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
He was feeling better. So Jules the Trailblazer. That's what I am. Now, but again, just understand, just because we're both considered trailblazers doesn't mean we're the same, right? Mm-hmm. It means we're very similar, but we can still have some differences. So So Jules is pretty polarizing, right? And both of you guys are pretty polarizing, meaning, you're living in one of the extremes or the others. We have a lot of people that are closer, much closer to the median in these things. Okay. But again, strong personalities. So Jules, you have a high A, right? So you're what? 1, 2, 3, 3.5, almost four clicks away for autonomy. So you're in that 90, probably 98%. Not quite Tom, maybe a little more than me. I think I'm like 3.5, 4, right? You're about 4. So again, same kind of thing. You're going to make decisions based on facts and data, but it's your autonomy. You're in the driver's seat of your life. Okay. But your B, look at your B compared to Tom's, right? Tom's B is over here. Your B is high. So you still make decisions a lot for people about feelings. The main differences between Trailblazer, right, which is you, and Enterpriser, which is Tom, is you're a lot less selfish. Okay.
Oh, how dare you?
Right.
How dare you?
True.
Okay. We'll read about, what they say. But yeah, you still have that high B, but the A is higher than the B, which still means that the A will control, okay, as needed. You are fast paced, right? And if you look, you're faster paced than Tom. In a lot of ways. Well, what is it? About 3 clicks here. You're about 3.5 or so here. Okay. And so for me, my D goes this way. I have the hook. You don't. So I'm not an expert enough to know, it just means I'm a little more, Tom and I are a little more selectively attention to detail. So we have better attention to detail than you, but only when it interests us. So I
can see that.
Tom, so maybe, like forgetting some podcasting equipment in New Orleans, right?
Right. Could you imagine? Could you imagine?
Listen.
Right. And so when that happens, Tom, when that happens, Jules can go, hey, Tom, you know what you got with me? I'm a trailblazer. I have that low attention to detail. I forget things.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So Manny and I, a lot of times, I'll just be like, yeah, Manny, that's Manny's high D talking right there, where he makes sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted. And we turn it into a bit of a joke, in certain things. Right. And the EU, right. So obviously we'll look at that in comparison, but the big thing is the logic. So again, we can parade out we can parade out all the X's if we wanted to on another show, but Jules is a 1 in logic. So,
emotional, what can I say?
Yeah, and so am I. Look,
she's emotional for sure.
Right. Now let's look at the differences. So the job behaviors, she thinks, yes, she needs to have a high autonomy. Okay. Maybe not as much as she does. But the B, there's a big difference in the B. Okay. She thinks she needs, a little less, maybe emotionally attached or decision-making based on people. The C is still there, but not as prevalent. And then she does recognize that she in her role needs to have more attention to detail than she does.
Yeah.
Right? So she still believes she needs to work fast-paced, right? So she's basically saying, I know I need to be fast-paced and in charge and in control, a little less focused on inductive feelings and thoughts, and much more attentive to detail. But the EU is not moving. So it's not really stressing her.
Right.
I'm like, I could.
Right. It's not really stressing her, but you see the big jump in logic. So she knows that she needs to be more logical. Okay.
Right. That's emotional.
But it's interesting that it's not stressing you though. And I don't know how they have their secret formulas, how they get this. I don't know how they do, right? But whatever they do, it's just showing that even though you do have some major differences in what you naturally are versus what you think you need to be, it's not stressing you out.
Sometimes. But yeah, no, that is interesting. I feel like I just know that they need to be, I know that I need to tone back the emotion and bring more logic. So it's like, I know it needs to happen. So why am I going to stress it?
Right. Okay. Well, and see, other people can go, I know I'm not living up to my expectations. Maybe Tom will just, we'll make something up, but maybe Tom's like, I know I need to change in these things. And it does stress him potentially. Right. So that's a thought,
It's so funny.
Right. Yeah. And I know when look, the the EUs can change depending on when you take the test or it's an assessment, not a test, right? But when you take the assessment, the survey traits are not supposed to change, but the job behaviors in the EU, the difference between the two could change when you take it again. So that's something, that we've been told to do. We haven't really done that, but we've been told that could. So now, Jules, let's go into your little summary. Okay, now we can see what's the same as Tom and what's different than Tom. Right? Generalist, avoid detail by delegating, naturally decisive. That's similar to Tom, may seem impulsive and fearless. But here, you require somebody with greater follow-up skills to support you, as closure is not something that you are concerned about on a consistent basis. So, for example, if in your marketing department, right, if maybe, Jules, you had a VA or an assistant or somebody there to be more of, the person that follows through with the different projects, where you're the generalist, you can do a little bit of everything, you can lead some of the projects, right? But then you need somebody to really be that nitty gritty, maybe slower, more sequential, and just enjoy that type of work. Right? Here we go. Let's get the boyfriend on. The communication style is coercive and at times persuasive and dynamic. Okay. Right? Opinionated but willing to compromise, especially in group efforts. That is me, right? And I think that's more of the higher B on there. Collaboration is important, right? I don't think we heard that about Tom.
No.
Multitasking, just like Tom, right? You won't tolerate delays. Let's see. This is me to a T. Okay, so this is what they say about you, but this is me to a T. My style can be oftentimes is overwhelming to other people when I change policies and procedures, and I do drive others very hard as I do myself, and I confrontive and combative sometimes when people are not picking up the slack. So
I could see that.
That this is me to a T as well. I'm a problem solver. I love change, which was similar to Tom, but I can be impatient with people who just don't understand.
Definitely impatient, 100%.
Right.
Quick-paced individual.
Right. Similar to Tom in here, right? You want to solve problems as they arise, resist structure, right? Demand details be finished in a certain way, but may require somebody else to actually finish it or accomplish it. Right. So, but, average amount of behavioral flexibility. So, yeah, I mean, and you see, so basically some of the differences are around, again, that the differences between you guys is more of the B, Jules.
The social. Yeah, I was going to say the people, right? Social. Yeah.
Right. And feelings too. And it's the higher B and the lower D, right? Where, Tom just, right. If bringing that extra camera setup is going to benefit Tom, i.e., filming, he's going to make sure it's there, right? Yep. So I mean, that's you guys. I'll stop sharing.
So what's funny about that though, Adam? Like how they say, and Jules, and you'll realize this yourself. So like my daughter is a perfect example. The things that frustrate you most about other people are the things in yourself that you either don't like or frustrate you about yourself on a subconscious level. So when Madeline is acting up in a certain regard, and I'm like, that is the most maddening thing. And my wife looks at me and goes, you think, dopey? So Jules and I have had a lot of interactions over the years, and she's a quick start. But she's such a quick start that I won't even finish the sentence. She's doing it and executing. And I'm like, stop moving so fast. Meanwhile, and again, so the things that frustrate you the most are there's a lot of similarities in what you are describing, right? So I'll let you in on a little secret. I don't know if you listen to all the podcasts, Adam. I don't think anybody.
I listen to a lot. I listened to the 2-parter with Jen Gore. Amazing.
Yeah, she was awesome. She was awesome.
I was like, well, if she got a 2-parter, technically, has she been on the? No, she's only been on the show once.
Right.
Her episode was just long, so I was like,
it was cool. And anybody who's listening to this, who hasn't listened to that one, go back and listen to both, because it was just nugget of gold.
Absolutely. What I started to say earlier, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, Jules and I were on a podcast. Who were we on with, Jules, that I was talking to, where I saw the spark in your eye? Do you remember who it was?
Charlie Mann, I think.
I was talking to Charlie Mann, and Jules asked the question. Jules said, so what was it about the inflection point where you decided to open your own business, and how you went about it? And I saw something. You know when you're cross-examining somebody, Adam, and you know you got something? So after the episode's over, I'm like, Jules, come into my office. Jules comes into the office. I said, what's going on? She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I saw something in your eye. What's going on? She said, what do you mean? Now she's starting to sweat. She's getting this squirmy look on her face. I'm like, you got 1 foot in, you got 1 foot out. When is it? Tell me when it's coming. 6 weeks. I said, okay, what are you doing? I'm opening my own business. I said, all right. Today's her last day.
Today? So we got it's her before you're leaving.
It's her last. She's not leaving. We're going to be working together going forward. She's doing social media management. We've announced it on the show earlier, but like this is her formal last day, where it makes sense. Understanding her profile, understanding her assessments. You know, certain assessments are just not ever going to be comfortable second or third or in certain roles. Mm-hmm. And I've known that about Jules for a very long time. I'm actually flattered by the fact that when she came to me, she was a wee one, and literally a wee one. She was as tall as my knee. I've known her since she's a kid. Mm-hmm. And I like to think that her kind of being with me for 5 years alongside me, basically, I've taken her everywhere together. She was ready to make that jump. It makes sense. Like, you can't change people, right? And you have to be willing to meet people where they are. And then at certain points in their trajectory of your relationship, accept the fact that they are who they are, right? Like, you're a married man. You know, if you try to change your wife, that's a recipe for an unhappy marriage. Oh, yeah. If you accept your wife in all of her good qualities and all of her whatever, we all have character flaws and character differences. That's the key to a happy marriage. I'm going to be married 15 years. I've got way more character flaws than any individual should have. But my fact that my wife can laugh about 80% of them, that's why I'm still married.
Tom, that brings up a good point that I do want to discuss briefly, because it's so true, especially like in a marriage dynamic. But I will go one step further. So look, my wife's an attorney. She's a prosecutor. We try not, I mean, I think the two of us could have a great podcast about both sides. And she, I mean, and look, we do things differently, right? So a lot of times I'll try to, you know, get a result or get a change by force or will or determination or convincing, right? That's just, again, that's my, as the, you know, Trailblazer, right? But she does it by, she gets people to buy in. She gets consensus. She gets people to want to help her by being that, you know, caring, loving, giving, social person. And I always say, I'm like, don't ever change your style. Your style works for you. My style, you know, sometimes works for me. I need to obviously get, you know, I think we can always trim around the edges no matter what we are. But to take that a step further, as I'm going to masterminds, as I'm learning, you know, and I'm doing like in lots of groups and focusing on personal and professional development, I've seen people in our industry where they've gone through this and their spouse has not. And then you change, and 5 years, 10 years later, you're like, wait a minute, I'm a different person. I've evolved, and what I want is not this, and my spouse has not evolved with me. So I am so hyper focused on that, you know, to the extent how we have 2 little kids. So, but to the extent of this, my wife, I'm trying to bring her to masterminds, and she's come to some, you know, certain conferences. We've done some mindset work a little bit, and we want to do more mindset work together because, you know, like anything, if you're not growing together, you're growing apart, or if you're not growing, you're dying. And I don't want to be that person in 15 years that goes, or even in 5 years that goes, right? Yeah, we grew apart. I evolved and she didn't. So, and luckily for her, she's so open to it and wants it as well. So I think that's something as well that's important for people as they're going through this entrepreneurial journey. Right. And
I think that's part of the work that you do. Like, my wife doesn't attend a lot of the masterminds, but we talk all the time. And she's like, and again, I know all my character flaws way too well. Like, I'm very self-aware, right, about that stuff. But the one thing that my wife always says is, I love your ability to keep reinventing. Well, that's great, because I'm an innovative reinventor. She's like, you can pivot. You have pivoted over the last 20 years in an unbelievable amount of times. And she appreciates that fact. And that's not who she is. And so, like, again, marriage is work, man. Like, but the thing is too, so are all relationships, right? In the workforce, I think too many people don't understand. I just had this conversation with one of my lawyers. We were out to lunch today, and I said, you move very fast and you appreciate speed, and I'm just like you. However, not everybody is. So understand your speed can impact your communication style. That communication style can be misinterpreted or taken a certain way. And if you slow down, that could be your superpower. So what you talked about, Adam, was interesting. It's not a throwaway comment. We all need to trim around the edges, right? And so where I can focus is trying to bring that alignment between the natural style of, I really am a people person. I love it. I was at this wedding last night. I think I talked to 500 out of 550 people.
Right. And remember that B has nothing to do with introvert or extrovert. That's one common.
Right. But my perceived distancing at the time I took that test of what I think I need to be as far as people's influence on decision making, I should probably look to reconcile that a little bit, because I do lean on my team for input, but I don't need it. I'm very comfortable making independent, but I do like going back to consensus. And under EOS, they force that. So, that's why I think I love EOS so much, because it's forcing me to grow, adapt, change, pivot, all of that stuff. Right. So, it was funny because literally after we took this test, between that time in New Orleans and today, Jules gives me notice. Jules is like, yeah, I'm going out on my own, do my own thing, make my own way. Which, again, the parts of my assessment, I had to emotionally process that before I could even react, because my natural default was to react a different way than what you're seeing right now. But I had to wrap my head around, like, wait a minute. Good for Jules. This is a good thing. We're still going to work together. She's still great at what she does. She's going to be on the podcast, and we worked everything out in terms of how we should go forward. And I'm happy for her. She's a family friend. I have known her since she's a kid, and, she's grown so much, and she does have so much to offer that I'm excited to see what she can do now once I was able to process it, so.
It was funny. I had to give Tom like a good hour, and then he walks into my office. He's like, I'm happy for you. I'm going to leave, and then we'll talk about this tomorrow. I was like, sounds good.
Yeah. No, that's funny. Well, exactly. And you guys have, a lot of long-term relationship. There's a friendship there. There's, there's history. So it's totally different. I'm glad that, look, I think anything, it doesn't mean, just the fact that you guys can still work together and do those things. That's fantastic, because, that's really what it's about, right? It's about, the next adventure, but still maintaining that together. And Jules, what I would say is, as you grow your business, I think for one of the first hires that you should make, is somebody who's opposite of you, right? Because you have that visionary profile. So whether it's, maybe your first hire is a VA to help you with some things, maybe it's somebody domestic, right? And full time, I don't know, but you sedefinitely want to look for somebody who enjoys doing the minutia, enjoys doing the sequential work, the grind, because you'll notice there's going to come a time where you get busy and you're overwhelmed and you're like, oh, this is great. Getting the client is great. Doing the creative is great. But now I have to actually do the grunt work. Well, make sure. And look, and that's one thing that Culture Index could really help you with. And, I can obviously help you if you want with that. But having somebody who goes, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to be creative. I could just do the grind. I love the grind. This is amazing, right? Because some people love it. So
this is literally the conversation we've been having for 6 weeks because
Tom and I just talked about that today.
I instinctively said that to her. I go, look, I want to help you, but my marketing will be so effective to get you business that I'll break you in the first month.
Right.
Literally, I can bring you into a group right now. It has 100 people in there that 25 to 30 of them will hire you next month. And then I have another guy who already said, oh, if you like her, I'll give her clients. And so I said, Jules, don't do any of that until you have a plan, because I knew that instinctively, like she's going to want to say yes. She wants all of it. And she's very money motivated. Holy cow, is she money motivated? So that's okay. I am too, Jules. Like to me, I'm a utilitarian and to me, money's a tool.
Right.
Yeah.
But knowing about that, both in my personality where I want to help her succeed, I can sell anything to anybody, and her cultural index that you just described, I said, look, just be well aware of what you need before. And we talked about it today. We said, look, you probably need a VA right out of the gate, right? Yeah. Like just think about it. So it's really, really interesting. I appreciate you coming on and doing that.
It's not a cost. It's an investment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited. And I was just so excited to hear about our personality tests. And it was funny because I know we've been talking about this for a while, and I was like, I kept thinking, I was like, oh my God, right after I told Tom, he was like, wow, so your personality test is going to make a lot of sense. So I'm like, I guess so. Or behavioral test.
Yeah. Well, and you probably knew sitting in the gardens at that beignet place, you already knew what you were doing. And you probably wanted to vomit all over us about it emotionally, knowing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't lie. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you.
It's hard.
All right. Listen, this has been awesome. Adam, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. It was just really interesting to reconcile all of the stuff between Jules and I. And it all makes a lot of sense, right? It all makes a lot of sense. These tools are really valuable for anybody that's listening to this. You can reach out to Adam. Adam, where do you want people to reach out?
Yeah. So, my guys, I want to give a shout out to Samit Chahal. Samit's my guy for this. And so anybody, I don't have his stuff handy, but if you want to reach out to me for anything, obviously law firm related, criminal defense related, just if you, I don't want to hang out, great. People can find me pretty much anywhere on social media. Adam Rossen, Rossen Law Firm. The email is at adam@rossenlawfirm.com. 2 S's. It's ROSSEN. And if you want Samit's info, I can give you Samit's info. I mean, I swear by Culture Index. I think Culture Index, EOS has been just by far one of the top 3 decisions we've ever made. And I think Culture Index is a solid top 10, top 15. And I think actually as the firm grows, it'll probably get definitely ingrained in maybe the top 6 or 7. The best decision we've ever made.
Adam, my man, you're doing things differently. I love talking to you. And that's a wrap, man. Thank you for coming on and doing this, because Jules and I have had an interesting journey, and this is a nice bow on that journey.
Yeah, I'm happy to be on that. You're right. I mean, obviously, Jules, you'll still be on the show, right? But,
yes.
But the final one of you under the TonaLaw, I feel special.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, she's gonna stay the co-host, and she's gonna be the production manager of it and doing all of that, and we're gonna help her promote what she wants to promote too. So yeah, it'll be awesome. It'll be really awesome. All right, thanks guys. Thanks so much.
All right.